Me llamo es Eric. Bueno. Y yo soy el juez de Taquiente de Permisos de Biblioples. Um, some people have said to me before I'm a German-Mexican. Half German, half Mexican. But they're actually wrong, of course, because my ethnicity constantly changes. Ah, more fun than Monopoly. I was thinking about this quote that I believe Hero Lamb quoted Lou Reed saying this yesterday in the stream. Might have been somebody else, but I feel fairly confident it was Hero Lamb. And I was thinking about this quote this morning. Somebody asked Lou Reed, "Why do you do drugs?" He said, "Better than Monopoly." Now, by better, I'm going to translate his words into something a little bit more precise. Say more fun than. So, thinking about this in the car this morning. What I've concluded is that Lou Reed's answer makes no sense. Because in order for him to establish that's a good reason to do drugs, he'd have to show that he has exactly two options. Playing Monopoly and doing drugs are the two options, and that they're mutually exclusive. He can't do drugs while playing Monopoly. Obviously, both those states of affairs are counterfactual. So, sorry, Lou Reed, but that's not a good reason to do drugs. I'm not saying you need a good reason to do drugs, but more fun than Monopoly is not a good reason. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about a bit in this live stream is Eric's 12 rules of life. You know how Jordan Peterson has 12 rules of life? Well, I often think, fairly often think, like, what would my 12 rules of life be? So, as I was driving to Boot Jack and back this morning getting cigarettes, I was thinking about that question as well. And I've come up with a few rules for life that I think universalize pretty well. Namely, number one, when you're in the right, almost always go on offense. Number two, when you're in the wrong, almost never play defense. Those are good rules, you know. Because unfortunately, people do a lot of skeevy frame walking with each other. And one of the most basic forms of frame walking is the person on offense has the advantage provided the other person plays defense. So, this is like a general life thing that I'm talking about here. It does have a corollary in debate, which is to say, good morning, Winston-Salem, which is to say that one doesn't merely affirm or negate in debate. It's also the case that while affirming or negating, you can be accomplishing offense or defense. And as a general rule, I think in life, the best defense is a good offense. But I don't think that would make my 12 rules of escalate when the final outcome is in your favor. Uh, I mean, yeah, sort of, I guess. But the issue is by framing the first two rules when you're in the wrong and when you're in the right, you set things up such that the situation's already adversarial. Whether or not an outcome is in your favor, you need to establish that the situation's adversarial first, because there are plenty of cooperative endeavors where you're not trying to necessarily win, right? Um, or there are win-win, plenty of win-win situations in life, and when presented with those, it's generally a better idea to attain the added benefits of synergy over the clarity and uh, excision qualities of adversarial engagement. Um, Another rule I thought is a good rule for life is distinguish between people who use language to express themselves and people who use language to communicate information. Most people um, don't split the difference very much. I think, like STJs kind of split the difference. One thing I was thinking about last night, which I think is interesting to note, I've talked before about how one problem that humanity has, or at least the English speaking world has, is that we use the same word to describe two very different things. Like we'll say somebody's smart if they're effective, have a good solution to something. We'll also say they're smart if they're, you know, NTP kind of smart. Well, another example of how that plays out is look at math problems. Math questions are called problems by most people, and the answers to math questions are called solutions, even though a math question is not a problem, it's a question. TI deals with questions, right? TE deals with problems or goals. The answer to a math question is definitely an answer to a question. It is to say, does this math validate against this answer? Or another way of putting it is, what answer does this math validate against? Whenever we're using language to do communicative work, that happens in the form of questions being asked and answered. So we see this in parliamentary rules of order. To call the previous question is to elicit a vote on a bill. The reason I say it's to call the previous question is because it's saying, okay, we've asked this question, we've debated which answer to it is correct for a while. Now we're going to call back that previous question and determine what collectively we've determined about the answer. And in the legislative process, or really in any communicative intellectual work process, the number one first thing to consider is the order of questions. Now, it's not the order of operations, it's the order of questions. Hi, Lee, man. You know, speaking of Lees, I still trip out over the fact that I once dated a woman named Kim Moon Lee, who was a white woman. Trippy, huh? I've actually dated two women whose last name were Lee. One of them was Korean back when I was 18. Her first name was Chris. Oh, she had a Korean name too. I forget what it is though. Well, I mean, she's still alive. No, her name was Kimberly. Her maiden name was Moon. Okay. And she married a white guy named Lee, like Robert E. Lee kind of Lee, you know? She kept her maiden name as her middle name. And so that made her Kimberly Moon Lee. Eric, what do you do when you feel lonely? Well, this, for one thing. I don't really feel lonely very often. Um, Loneliness isn't a problem for me because of YouTube, really. I think loneliness was a very real problem for me before I started YouTubing. I didn't recognize it as such, but I think so. I think people feel lonely when they don't feel as though they have an opportunity to really connect with anybody who sees things in the same ways as they do in some fashion, at least. Because, I think part of the time when I felt lonely, I was married, raising a daughter, very busy, etc. This morning I watched you type Donna. You talked about the equivocation game. I don't know what the equivocation game is. It just means using one word in two different ways to make an argument. I mean, I think that's just a term for, or probably, I don't remember what you're referring to, but I'm assuming it's just a term referring to like this thing that people do, which isn't really a game, but, equivocating on shit. Going like 2514, huh? The grounds where I had set up camp. Is it sliding? Well, the point isn't where the story goes. It's called the equivocation game because words have multiple meanings. It's where you're trying to admit to be a character who has misinterpreted my sentence in a way, So speak. So here, let me give you a starting point. Okay. 30 rocks sat near the grounds where I had set up camp. Okay, so then the equivocation game would be like you'd say 30 rock grounds, but I'm not in New York City, nor am I making coffee. like that. I'm assuming that's how it must play out, right? You pretend to misinterpret the meaning of words. Like, wrecked him, I barely know him. That's the equivocation game. This is a heavy fog. Are you, do you think it's going to crush our car underneath its weight then? That's the equivocation game. I mean, I don't know. You mean, can I do a game? The equivocation game is a TI game, really. It's pretending to misunderstand a word that's used in this precise way as though it were used in this other precise way that's exclusive. It's typing session, but I forgot my keyboard. Exactly, money. Bam. Wonder point for you. You just exemplified, demonstrated, and killed it at the equivocation game. But I also give you a wonder point too, Mrs. Mom, for finding that and bringing it up here. I appreciate that. You get a wonder point too. That you deserve that wonder point because this is a good thing to mention. I like this idea, the equivocation game. So, yeah, people equivocate when they equivocate in what I consider skeevy ways. It's not like super obvious like that. You know, it's more subtle. Meow. Oh, mournful meows. So full of sadness and sorrow. So I slept pretty well last night. Well, no, let me restate that. I slept a solid. I stayed in bed for like 8 hours, right? But the first half of the night, I slept kind of meh. It was too hot, and I should have used my asthma inhaler before I went to bed because I was kind of wheezy. Um, what's a more interesting game than the equivocation game, although a lot harder and probably only a few types can even try to play it really, is the Dorothy Parker game, where you try to come up with, um, well, for us in California and Winston, I remember, weather is good. So we're jealous of Los Angeles because they're getting rain still, and we stopped getting rain at least for the day. I think we're going to be getting more this in a few days, though. I've been looking at the clouds. Dorothy Parker, Dorothy Parkerism is to try to construct something with the same architecture as I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. I back when I originally was into Dorothy Parkerisms, I made up multiple of them. None of them, of course, as good as Dorothy Parker's. That you can't beat that one. I don't think that's beatable. Her genius bottle in front of me frontal lobotomy is just too perfect. She's got a lot of great quotes. You can lead a horticulture, but you can't make her think. Men don't make passes at girls who wear glasses. What? Okay, stop meowing. One thing I was considering doing some shorts of is great quotes that um, I'd rather have a typing session than an identity deception. It's not just a matter of rhyming this, right? Yeah, it has to be something like I'd rather have a man tried to type me than like a me tried a man type, right? You want it to be like that, but mean something. No, not like that. like I'd rather have dinner in Tottenham than tote me a mine full of dinner ham. Something like that, you know. I'd rather have dinner in Tottenham than tote me a diner of than tote me uh dinner of boiling hot flan. I don't know. They're hard, right? They're hard to do, these ones. The Dorothy Parkerisms. When I get, this is difficult to do. So it's like I could just get stuck here just thinking, and then there's no point in doing that. Thought you wanted to get serious. Um, oh, I'm serious. Believe me, I'm as serious as a heart attack. It's kind of like ABBA. I don't know. It's its own thing, right? It's a unique thing that I just call it Dorothy Parkerism. It's too hard. This is one of those things that I cannot possibly do on live stream. I and if I try, I just sit here in silence. I've got lots of ideas now for possible Dorothy Parkerisms. I mean, you can start with anything, right? Like I'd rather pass gas at the library than gaslight my past about dysentery. I'd rather pass gas in the library than gaslight my past to be contrary. I don't know. The Unitarians had the game on their site. I mean, that's just an explanation of equivocation. That's not them playing the equivocation game. No, I like his answer. I was just thinking about his answer here alone this morning as follows. His answer really only makes sense if he has exactly two choices: doing drugs and Monopoly, play Monopoly, and they're exclusive. So you can only choose one or the other. If that's the circumstances, then his answer makes great sense. But I get that his answer is attempting to convey something beyond just an answer. I like the answer. That's why I quoted it here. Doing drugs is more fun than Monopoly. But if I were going to be, a nitpicky guy about it, I'd point out that A, there's nothing preventing you from doing drugs and playing Monopoly. And B, comparing the thing against playing Monopoly is a fairly low bar, right? It's like, playing Monopoly can be fun. I'm not saying it's never fun to play Monopoly, but I'm just saying you survived. As long as you'll be alive, and you've got all that love to give, and you've got all that shmata meow, and you've got meow. Meow, 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 you did survive. You survived that thing you didn't want to do. You survived it until you knew that you would be okay because you knew your name was Kay and you survived. Yes, you survived. Later on in the same interview, he intentionally contradicts himself. Were you searched by customs for drugs? No, I don't take any. I'm high on life. It's fantastic. He should have said, no, they already had their own drugs, I guess. That's what he should have said. That would have been a better answer. Wait, you sat on someone's lap during a plane ride? In what universe do they not, when they don't have enough seats on a plane, do they put you on someone's lap? Hallelujah. K.E. It was raining men. Oh, she went skydiving. I didn't catch that part. Well, that makes sense because she's strapped to another person who's the knowledgeable skydiver for her first jump, right? You don't jump out the plane by yourself the first time. You're strapped to somebody else. That's normal. You know what? Given that they call skydiving skydiving, why don't they call hot air balloon riding sky floating? He was hilarious too and made jokes about how he didn't know what he was doing. That's hilarious. Rachel and I have already agreed. I remember I once said I'd rather someone vomit in my mouth than sneeze in my mouth. And someone responded with, so would you let me vomit in your mouth? And the thing is funny, the construction of I'd rather meow than meow is different than I do drugs because it's more fun than Monopoly. She did skydive. I trust you with my life. He said, it's too much pressure. That's funny. What a funny guy. What do you want? Meows a lot. Baron von meows a lot. Baron von meows too much, really. If we're going to be honest about the thing, we're going to just admit it. You meow too much, Mr. Man. I'm tired of your incessant meowing. Yeah. Physical experiences never change your life, K.E. They don't have meaning inherently. And we can't fool ourselves that whatever meaning we come up about, it's, soul altering power. It is just more extroverted intuition. Now you know how rich people who get $1 million feel? Like they went skydiving? You know what's better than skydiving? Hot air balloon ride. You go float majestically in the sky in a beautiful air balloon. Hot with the life is. Life in the sky. Floating so free. I love hot air balloon. Floating so high in the sky. Get me hot air balloon. I see you in the sky. And I'm floating oh so high. What cognitive functions work during sex? Well, for me, it's usually extroverted penis. During sex, my penis gets extroverted, Normally, it's kind of an introvert. It likes to just kind of stay home in my bun huggers, nestled up against my body. Very SI heavy. But during sex, my penis extroverts. It grows longer, girthier, and has a striking indecision about whether it would like to be inside of something or outside of something. Sex is a difficult one to answer. There are a lot of different things going on in sex, and I expect that people pay attention during sex in somewhat different ways. Sorry, trouble. I've posited before in a video, and this is consistent with my experience, but I wouldn't put too much weight into it. The idea that people probably like their sixth slot function to play something of a role during sex. A lot of people would say it's the most bliss one can feel. Skydiving? I'm not sure if courage is the right word either. Um, because it's like it doesn't realistically it doesn't probably entail a lot more risk than just flying in an airplane. Um, it's counterintuitive to self-preservation, but I'm not sure if taking a leap of faith necessarily comprises courage, even if there's fear to overcome. I'm not sure. I wouldn't have probably questioned the word if, I guess it's Hero Lamb, hadn't mentioned it, but I'm sure it doesn't. Even newborn babies have an instinctual fear of falling. So, uh, I guess, I guess, I guess it's not wrong to call it courage. Now that I think about it more, that qualifies as courage. I guess I think of courage as being more abstract than that in some way, but that's just my frame bias. People get pleasure from different things. Obvious statement. I don't like physical danger. Well, I don't like physical danger either, but I do like some dangerous things potentially. Like, I like to ski. I haven't skied in a while, but I do like to ski. I don't know, something about it I find. Well, I was put on skis very young. So I guess it's like riding a bicycle. If you do it a fair amount fairly young, you can feel very comfortable doing it. Even if it's not consistent with other stuff that you're comfortable with. Like, I'm terrible at surfing. I'm terrible at skateboarding. I can't snowboard at all. I've never tried to snowboard, but I'm assuming I can. Um, Roller skates, ice skates, any of those slide around things, I'm terrible at, except skiing. And the only difference between those other things and skiing is I started skiing very young and skied a lot. But skiing's a little different, obviously, than skydiving because you can gradually work up to the really steep advanced slopes, which can be pretty fucking sketchy. Those things can be scary. Like coming down the off from the gondola at Mammoth Mountain from the very top of it, which is at 11,000 feet, and opens up into this large bowl. It's like the remnants of a caldera. And what if you're strapped to a beautiful lady, show media? Then is it gay? I'll tell you what makes skydiving super heterosexual. Actually having sex with the lady you're strapped to while you're skydiving. That makes it extra heterosexual. But you do bring up a really important point here. Okay, well, what if you're in charge? Well, that's how you even the playing field. She's in charge, but you're poking her in the butt. That levels the playing field. But you bring up a good point. Naked and Afraid should do a skydiving episode. Why do they need to be afraid for like 21 days? You could do a really quick Naked and Afraid episode if you just made them skydive naked. I did not debate in college. In general, the truth of the matter is the highest level of debate peaks in high school, actually, because debate's so much less of an active competitive sport in colleges that you get good college policy debates between like Harvard and Princeton or something. But by and large, it's not most colleges don't have debate programs. So I didn't do anything for debate in college at all. I debated in high school. Then it wasn't until I was, 30 some years old. Possibly. I mean, Jesus, to be honest, seems a little more FI than that. I like to kind of joke about what type he is, but the whole forgive them, they know not what they do thing is very FI. Jesus represents the ultimate primacy of FI regarding positive moral indications. So the highest value to uphold is justice, but the highest virtue to uphold is forgiveness. The reason justice is the highest value to uphold is you can never have too much justice if it's truly just. The reason forgiveness is the highest virtue to uphold is it's the only moral act above justice. I think Hitler was an INFJ on speed. I think he was an INFJ on a shit ton of meth. Yeah, it's shitty luck, all right. Like Buddy Holly, what shitty luck did he have? He put out like one record or maybe two, I don't know. Well, love isn't a virtue. Love's a feeling or a status, maybe, but not a virtue. Forgiveness is a virtue because it's a behavior in some sense, right? And justice is a value because it's something you can uphold and compare against. Right. Well, Cameron tells a story about a lady he knew who went to get like butt implants to make herself have a bigger butt and died during surgery. So, you know, we all take some risks and we get some people get shitty luck. Yeah, well, Jesus is all types is fine thing to say, I guess. Yeah, but you got to remember as well, Conman 3, that he was on meth. Now, meth doesn't make you evil, okay? Don't get me wrong. But you also got to remember that he was unmasked and had fought on the losing side in World War One, the most brutal, life-cheapening nightmare of a military conflict in human history. So he was obviously deeply traumatized by a variety of things and on just heroic amounts of meth. So the fact that Hitler was an INFJ does not speak ill of INFJs at all. It speaks ill of trauma, childhood trauma, World War One, authoritarianism, and combining that with meth. Hitler enjoyed World War One. Well, I'm glad somebody did. Most people didn't enjoy it very much. Have you ever read All Quiet on the Western Front? Oh man, it's brutal. A brutal book. Because like World War One, they were still using horses. Mr. Trump also says that immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. Oh my God. Okay, that guy is just. I mean, I feel validated somewhat in my shitting on him throughout his tenure as president, but it's also the case that that objectively his administration did a better job in terms of outcomes than the Biden administration. It was a different era. It was like an era in which there weren't these normalized, like, anti-drug kind of messages. I mean, I think your modern day Goebbels is Karl Rove, really. If you want to come up with a great example for a modern day Goebbels, it's that fucking guy. Turd blossom, as W called him. Yeah, politics is, well, I wouldn't call it boring. I'd call it triggering for me because I'm attached to the integrity of the discursive process, and politics is everything but that. Who called me a superficial hoe? I'm a deep hoe, okay? I'm a deep and profound hoe. It's actually spelled with a K, Winston's mom. not to be not to be pedantic and correcty. Okay, to be pedantic and correcty, it's actually spelled with a K. Discursive process is using discourse or communication to explain things or or attain attain consensus or determine what's just or various things one can do, advocate for or against a given policy prescription, etc. But the discursive process is one that's a deliberative process of adversarial language usually. So, you know, two clearly defined sides using language to try to determine what's correct. In an ideal world, it would be dialectic. In other words, all parties would be attached to no particular position, and they'd all be trying to figure out what using language in that kind of adversarial fashion um, best supports and least supports. In other words, using language to determine the truth rather than to attain your outcome. But I was also thinking on the way back from Blue Jack today about how illustrative Einstein and Tesla are about about the two different kinds of rational intuitives. You've got Tesla INTJ, and he's intuiting shit in a utility frame, right? Like, oh, I can have wireless meow with this big tower. Oh, I can create a Tesla coil. Oh, I can do this, that, the other thing. Things you can accomplish with understandings of the world, right? In contrast, you look at relativity, Einstein is not intuiting in a frame of teleology at all. Teleology. He's not thinking, how is this useful? He's just explaining something. And it's explicitly not true because of any utility. And it's explicitly true and not useful because it's predicated on the assumption that that which is correct is inherently useful in ways that no individual can anticipate. In other words, I can't know how being correct is going to be useful to you or anybody else in the future. I can just try to explain things correctly. What MBTI would be so oblivious they don't notice a squatter is living in their house during crack? I have no idea. But it's not just that Tesla was practical. Tesla was just as intuitively a genius as Einstein, more so probably. Um, and it's just that he came up with shit, Tesla did. Einstein explained shit. That's the difference. Einstein explained away contradictions in the existing Newtonian physics worldview and the implications thereof. He intuited that the implications of that Newtonian worldview ran contrary to something implicit about the universe and figured out what it was and explained it. Living in their house with them, by the way, not like they own the house but rent it, but living with them in the largest house. I mean, I don't think that's type specific. I can't think of any type that wouldn't notice a squatter in the house. It's called frogging if you successfully hide in someone's house and squat. PHROGGING. It's like if you live in someone's crawl space or inside their walls or something, it's called frogging. I was born in the 1800s. Yes, that was a previous life of mine. I was a Russian ballerina during that lifetime. My girlfriend kicked me out. She found out I was living there. That's a silly thing to say. So it's like you could say that Tesla was practical, but really Tesla was intuiting ways to get from A to B, right? How can we send electrical power to people without all these wires? How can we, um, for whatever reason, generate big electrical discharges with a coil? Various other things that Tesla did. I don't know. And Tesla is kind of has a lot of mystique around him. Yeah, well, show media, you are right. I have come to believe that as well. That we love this house and don't want to move, and we've come to terms with the fact that people may. Well, he wasn't just applying theory, right? I'm not talking about shit that Tesla did with existing theory and then applied it. That's not interesting. Anybody can do that. Elon Musk can do that. I'm talking about his original ideas and drawing the more meaningful distinction than practical and theoretical, which is one person is explaining things, the other person is figuring out how to get from A to B. Well, yeah, AC current is a great example. He's figuring out how to solve a problem that's extant with direct current. So rather than, sure, he's applying theory he already knows, but there's some critical leap forward, right, that he's making. Just like with Einstein. In that regard, the two are share that commonality. Both are making some novel and significant leap forward with their intuition from what is already known. The difference lies in what exactly each of them is doing. Einstein's explaining things, and Tesla's determining how to get from A to B. That's a Home Alone face. I don't see the hands, though. I guess those could be hands. I'm not sure. Am I making bread again today? No. I made the second loaf yesterday. No, you're right. Einstein didn't make the atomic bomb. True. That was Joe Stevens, inventor of the atomic bomb. Why did Tesla's mother name him after her electric car company? Good question, Money. Good question. He actually was burdened with a girl's name. Instead of calling him Nicholas, his mother named him Nikola. All the children teased him. Nikola, Nikola, you're like a throat lozenge. That's what the children said when he was in school. Exactly, show media. Exactly. The Rams, yes. The Rams have a player named Puka Nakuna. They also have a player named Cooper Kupp. So I was positing last night that it would be a good idea for Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua. Puka Nakua and Cooper Kupp could get married, and they could name their child Puka Cooper Kupp Nakua, which I think would be a great name if they have a boy. Puka Cooper Kupp Nakua. What do you want, Trouble? Want to go outside? Go outside. Go. That cat is such a pain in the butt. He's such a pain in the butt, he's like sitting on a cactus. This is the bread I made yesterday. It is done. but it was still ultimately a little undercooked. Yeah, Edison was not a genius. Edison was an ESTJ. Edison didn't use his intuition. He used 99% perspiration. I don't live in Burbank. No. I live in Mariposa County. Jerseydale area to be precise. Mariposa Pines to be more precise. It is in the center of California, in the Sierra Mountains, and we live tucked into a corner of private land between Sierra National Forest and Yosemite National Forest. So it's a pretty good place to be. I'm very happy with this place. And this house is just continually delighting me with its overarching brilliance. This house was designed by an INTJ. I'm convinced of it. It's just too smart and too not SI indulgent, you know? It's like there are no places in this house to put knickknacks. There just aren't any display spots. There's two, you could say. There are two display spots in the living room. There are these little teeny shelves. There's a mantle, but you can't even hang shit up on the walls because the walls are made out of metal. In its original manifestation, it had a very clean aesthetic inside, but the ESTJ and ESFJ, the double-powered NI polar team of the people who owned it before us, fucking did all the stupid shit that we need to fix. Like, we had to take down these dumbass screen doors that they put on. It was obvious they'd put them on because they just didn't. They were like, so ESTJ, I should say. ISTJs are somewhat more intuitive than that. But, you know, like, why? Okay, that was the ESFJ, frankly, who had her husband put on these shabby chic screen doors that totally didn't go with the house. And then we put in these dumb ceiling fans. Just the aesthetic doesn't match at all. But we're going to get rid of those things. Return the house to its original glory. We already got rid of the screen doors. So, yeah. This is what it looks like off of the deck. It looks like mountains. Sure, you can see our neighbor over there if you look through the trees, but you know, we're not as isolated as I'd like to be. I'd love to be on 10 acres or something like that. We just have 1 acre, which is a small amount of acreage for Mariposa County. But we were able to harvest our own Christmas tree from our hill here, you know. That was pretty delightful. Like, I was happy to have Cameron here. He had his reciprocating saw, so made it a little easier to cut it down. See all these little fir trees down there? You can't even see it, the spot where we cut it down, because it's an empty spot there, but it doesn't look like anything, you know. There's so many of them. We cut down one of those fir trees and put it in our house and decorated it ourselves. We hired somebody to do house decorations in general, but I put on the lights and the two big bows on the house, and I also we also decorated the Christmas tree. Rachel and I ordered the same kind of Christmas balls that the lady we hired to do the house put on the wreaths and stuff. So the tree matched the wreaths beautifully, and it came out great. Um, I would even say that sort of, in some sense, the tree is kind of the highlight of the whole decorations. Of course, the reason it is because we coordinated it with all the rest of the things. It's not as private as I'd like it to be, frankly. Not because I like privacy as people normally understand it, but because I I just would rather be like totally isolated in the wilderness on, you know, ideally like in the middle of 100 acres would be fantastic, but obviously that's not that's not in the cards for us. But we're very happy here, and yes, it's true that some people told us they were going to build across the street, and we really hate the idea of them building on the hill above our house over there. Um, but we don't know for sure if it's going to happen because they could end up discovering that it's too expensive to build on that hill, or maybe even that it's not possible to put in a septic given the codes or something like that where they are. It's conceivable. I doubt that, but possibly. And even if they do build across the street, it seems like they're getting themselves a vacation home probably rather than moving here, but I could be wrong about that. Also, we don't know what their house is going to look like. Maybe it'll look really nice and actually improve the value of houses around it. It's possible. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out as the bottom line. I know I don't like the idea of people building on the hill across the street and living there, but um, I've determined that that's definitely not sufficient reason to leave this place that we love, sell it, go someplace else, you know. At least let's experience the aftermath of construction and be sufficiently displeased by it to know both intuitively and experientially that yes, we need to move. Because otherwise, I love this place. And you know, it's like I say I would like to be on 100 acres, but you know, I need to get another bottle of propane for my torch. I'll let you in a second, Trouble. But I haven't gotten one yet because it's all the way down there in the shed. It's right. It's in the shed there. I don't feel like walking down the hill. So, like, do I really want 100 acres? I don't want to take care of 100 acres. I'd like to. I'd like to be isolated. I also don't want to sacrifice high-speed internet, of course, or any of the other modern conveniences. So here we're not even on well water. The rest of America is on well water, except for the town, and that's a huge advantage, frankly. We're also about as far back as you can get. Like, you're literally one other street that direction, and then it's forest. All forest that direction. You know, we're almost at the end of the street, not quite. Forest that direction, you know. So we're in a good spot. It's just we have other people around us in the same good spot, which is, I suppose, suboptimal. We tried having sex in the backyard before. One time. We lasted about 30 seconds before he said, "There are bugs down here." And we went back in the house. Well, yeah, we have propane and a combo electric propane central heating and air. It's propane for heating, it's electric for air conditioning. We've got propane oven, propane dryer, and we have a big propane tank out here that when it's completely empty, don't go pee over here. I'm pretty sure he just peed on Capia's bed. Is the only place he peed. I don't smell any other pee. Once I located that, that was the source of the pee smell. Capio had a bed over here, and Trouble, being a huge dick, peed on it. Anyway, the propane is, I guess, it probably ends up being equivalent overall energy costs to some other alternative. But one thing I like about propane is you pay for all of your energy costs in advance. So we were at about, I don't know, a little less than half full. And in like November, we called the propane place. They came, filled it up. It cost $800 and some dollars. And then that'll last us all the way through spring, maybe even into early summer. As it warms up, we use less propane, you know. We also have these propane fireplaces here in case the power goes out. Since the central heating requires both electricity and propane, if the power goes out and we don't have the generator, well, the generator doesn't power the central heating. So if the power goes out and it's cold, we have to turn on these propane, fake fireplace propane things, which don't require any electricity to work. And we have one downstairs and one upstairs. It would be better if we had two downstairs, frankly, but because obviously heat rises. So I don't find the propane to be a pain in the ass. I find it to be a better way to buy energy than electricity, which you have to pay every month. Our electricity bills, there was July was the worst month for electricity for us because we had guests here, and for like a week, I guess it was, we had Corey here, and Corey was running super hot. We were trying to crank the air conditioner all the time to get him, for it to be cold enough for him. He was upstairs, which is hotter in the summer, etc. The hot water heater is also propane. You can't run naked singing songs in the wilderness without people calling the cops. I'd have to drive my little wilderness car out into the wilderness a bit to do that. I can't just do it right around my house. There's only certain spots I can go, like pee in the backyard and be sure that there's no place that nobody can see me in that spot. There's not that many spots where nobody could possibly see me. I mean, there's plenty of spots where, given a certain time of day or whatever, that people are very unlikely to see me because, once it gets to be about 9 p.m., nobody really comes in or out of here until morning, And because we're almost at the end of Snyder Ridge, we just don't get very many cars driving by our house. We get the mailman, get the UPS truck or the FedEx. Rachel orders things, And it's not like we can go to the store. So for a lot of stuff, we can't really go to the store. Like Cameron was saying, go to Home Depot and check out light fixtures and shit. We have to drive all the way to fucking Merced to go to Home Depot. I wish I'd see a Sasquatch. I was anticipating by the time we'd lived here this long, I'd have several Sasquatches in my employment at this point. Instead, I haven't even seen one. I tell you what, I see a lot of drones flying because I don't know how other states' laws work regarding drones, but I think it might even be a federal thing, a FAA thing. But there aren't really a lot of airspaces. If you have a drone, that are legal for you to fly your drone in. But here over the national forests comprise one such spot. So not really over our house exactly, but in several directions, some miles away from our house, we'll frequently see drones. And we see them at night because they're easy to see at night because they have lights on them. But I suspect there are a lot of drones flying during the day too that I just don't see because they're too small to see when they don't have any lights on. Of course, there are two kinds of drones that fly around. I've seen both kinds of drones. Mostly you see the small drones that people own and fly around. But periodically we'll see the big drones like US military style drones. And you can easily distinguish them because both kinds have green, red, and white lights on them blinking. But the big drones, they're at the end of wings, you know? Anyway, I suspect at least some of those drone pilots may have equipped night vision or infrared or something and be looking for Sasquatches. I mean, they must have something equipped for night vision because otherwise, why would you bother flying your drone at night? Presumably, they can film the ground and in some fashion see something they want to see, or else they wouldn't be flying them at night, right? We do have like bears around here, black bears, a lot of deer. So I'm not sure what the deal is on hunting bears. I've never heard of anybody in California hunting a bear. I'm not sure if you're allowed to hunt bears, but you can hunt deer, and there are a lot of deer around here. And occasionally when we take the little wilderness car out, we'll see hunters out in the wilderness. One time I saw we saw some people on a truck who were on a turkey hunt, and Rachel thought they had shot a turkey, but it was like a plastic turkey decoy to attract turkeys or something. I was like, that's not a real turkey. Rachel. That's the turkey equivalent of a sex doll. And then another time we took the little wilderness car out, I saw somebody who was clearly hunting. Clearly, I would guess was hunting deer because he had a rifle. He was like on a ridge, and he had a rifle like set up on this thing where you lie down and you shoot. And then he and his wife were just like chilling, like on this camping stuff they had, and I guess probably waiting for it to get dusk, at which point he anticipated maybe the animals would come out, or waiting maybe until the next morning. I suspect that's when you are most likely to see an animal to shoot is dawn and dusk. So yeah, we do have assorted wilderness activities going on around here. We're also close to Bass Lake, which is a popular fishing spot, but also close to Lake McClure, which is a preferable spot, I believe. And to the relatively close to Lake McClure, and relatively close to Bass Lake, and relatively close to the Bagby Recreation Area, which is the Merced River, really. You can go fishing there too. I've gone fishing there before. I want to go fishing more. I like going fishing. I don't really like catching fish because I feel bad for the fish, but I like going fishing because I'm not going to eat the fish. And occasionally, you you can't pull out the hook and set it free. You know, sometimes it'll swallow the hook. And then I'm like, what am I gonna do with this fucking fish now? I try to eat it if it's a good kind of fish, but you know. That's one of those things that's again an SI thing for me, like skiing probably. I was taking fishing so young and so often that I just have these really I don't know. I've always found it to be perhaps the most relaxing thing I can possibly do if I'm in a comfortable spot where I'm fishing. I can't be like out in the blazing sun or something. But there's something about it that is just so relaxing. You set up your thing, your rig in this way or that way. You cast it out. You let it sit there for a bit. You reel it in, cast it out. You know, you make little adjustments and try different bait. Smoke cigarettes, smoke weed. I used to drink alcohol when I was fishing too, you know, and that would just be like the ultimate relaxation. You just on a boat on a lake drinking a half pint of whiskey and hang on. You know, I have this fond memory of one time I was fishing by myself on Lake Mary. Like I'd gone with my family. Delilah was probably with us, Candace and my parents. And but I get up early. So I went out to Lake Mary and had my little half pint of whiskey with me and I fished for a while. I felt all warm and wonderful. And then I just started feeding my worms to the ducks. I just took a worm out and I throw it, and the ducks would dive and get it. And I go, good job, ducks. That's a fond memory of drinking and fishing that I have. I don't have a lot of fond memories of drinking, but I do have that one. But you know, I don't even need to drink to find fishing relaxing at all. It just needs to be the right kind of day. It's got to be not too sunny and or a place where there's good trees or something. Now, if you do rent a boat and go out on a lake, that's fine. I don't get boat sick on lakes, at least not on Sierra Nevada lakes, which are small. They don't have waves really and stuff, you know. It's not like Lake Superior. But if you get out on a boat on a lake and you go out early, you can usually find the part of the lake that's still shady. But you've got to be ready to call it a day about 11 a.m. at the latest, you know. At that point, it starts heating up and it's hard to find any shady spots. And you probably didn't spring for the boat that's got the pontoon thing on top of it to cover you from the sun. Plus, how long do you really need to go fishing for? A few hours is fine. I think 2 to 3 hours is the perfect amount of time to be actually fishing. It's excluding time it takes to get to the fishing spot and back. You know, obviously don't include that, but Like once you're on the shoreline, whether it's a lake or a riverbank or whatever, from then to when you leave, the total amount of time, including setting up your rig and all that kind of stuff, should be about 3 hours. That's my opinion. That should be in my rules of life. Host Eric's 12 rules of life. One of them should state that the ideal fishing trip may last anywhere from, 4 to 8 hours, but the actual fishing part of it shouldn't last longer than 3. It's a good rule for life. Because you usually, unless you live right by a fishing spot and go fishing all the time or something, you're going to have to drive to get to your fishing spot. For me, I know that if I wanted to go to Lake McClure or Bagby, I'm looking at an hour. Lake McClure, I'm looking at an hour and a half. Even though if I were to just float down the Merced River from Bagby, I'd get to Lake McClure in no time. But to drive there, you got to drive around it. So, and looking at a solid hour and 10 to get to Bass Lake, maybe even an hour and 20 minutes. I don't know. So I'm not right next to any good fishing spots. Now, interestingly, there is, and I just noticed it maybe a month ago, there's a little lake right over here behind these houses on Heights Cove. I'm assuming we don't have access to it. It's probably someone's private land, but I was surprised to see it. Is that a lake back there? It is. There's also a lake at Lush Meadows. There's 2 lakes at Lush Meadows, which are accessible to anybody in the Lush Meadows community. Lush Meadows has a homeowners association. Mariposa Pines, where we live, also technically, I think, has a homeowners association, but it doesn't have any enforcement powers, and we don't pay any dues to it, and it doesn't really do anything. So, Lush Meadows is, I would say, probably considered the best neighborhood in Mariposa. You got large chunks of the county that are parceled in huge parcels and have ranches and shit, right? And then you got the town, but then you got a few different communities within the county. You've got Coulterville, which is like kind of slummy part of Mariposa compared to the rest. You got Mid Pines, which is kind of intermediate between slummy and nicer because it's right by the highway. Then you got like Bootjack, which is about a little nicer than Mid Pines, kind of similarly blue collar feel to it. And that also stretches along the highway. You got Dara, which is the road from the highway that intersects with Triangle. That community there is medium because it's along Dara. Then you got your Triangle Road properties. Those are it's generally nice to go anywhere on Triangle Road, Tip Top Road. Lush Meadows is a community off of Triangle Road. And then if you go back further, when Dara hits Triangle, it becomes Scott Road. Then you get into the Conservancy where there's no construction of any kind allowed. And then past the Conservancy, you get into Jerseydale. Jerseydale's a nice neighborhood, but it's considered very rural. And that's technically where we live. Past Jerseydale, Mariposa Pines. So it's like if we were going to get in a better neighborhood, which is to say not just be a house on a huge lot, but being a neighborhood, the only really better neighborhood we could possibly go to in Mariposa would be Lush Meadows. And I'll concede that Lush Meadows has somewhat more going on for it as a community than Mariposa Pines. But Mariposa Pines has a water district, so take that, Lush Meadows. Take that. That's my explication of Mariposa County neighborhoods. It doesn't really have a lot of neighborhoods, right? Because of the large parcels, and there's a lot of conserved wilderness areas in the county. So Mid Pines, I guess the best neighborhood in Mariposa County is one we've never been to, and that's El Portal. El Portal is right next to Yosemite's main entrance. So the closer you get to Yosemite's main entrance, the more expensive shit gets. And once you get past a certain point, Mid Pines is not that expensive. Mid Pines is about halfway between Mariposa Town and El Portal. So that's my unsolicited and very dull story about different neighborhoods in Mariposa County. If you aren't bored yet, you have a high tolerance for unneeded, unwanted, and unsolicited commentary about county zonings. So let's see what sports are on today. I do believe there's at least one NCAA football game on today. Yes, at 3:30, we've got Georgia Tech versus UCF. So that's pretty good. Tomorrow, though, is going to be a much better sports schedule, because tomorrow's Saturday and it's bowl season, which means that tomorrow, which is December 23rd, there's going to be the Birmingham Bowl, Troy versus Duke, Camellia Bowl, Arkansas State versus Northern Illinois, the Crampton Bowl, will feature the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, pitting James Madison versus Air Force. The famous Idaho Potato Bowl will pit Georgia State versus Utah State. The 68 Ventures Bowl sees South Alabama face Eastern Michigan. The SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl has Pac-12 stalwart Utah facing Northwestern, and the Easy Post Hawaii Bowl sees the players of Coastal Carolina and San Jose State get to do their football battle in the lovely state of Hawaii. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bowl games tomorrow. Pretty great. Today, 1 bowl game. But that's better than no bowl games, right? Now let's take a gander at this weekend's NFL schedule. See what the professional football players have in store for us. Yes, as I thought, as I was hoping, as I suspected, we have got a couple of Saturday games this week from the professional football players as well on NBC and Peacock. Oh, Peacock. Meow, meow. Nobody has Peacock and nobody wants to get Peacock. So just give it up, NBC. But Cincinnati versus Pittsburgh's on at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. And that's the Bengals are 8-6. The Steelers are 7-7. Huge playoff implications in that game. If you watched the Thursday night game, you'll know that the Rams defeated the New Orleans Saints, and that both teams at the time when they met were 7-7. The Rams' playoff chances skyrocketed with the win that put them to 8-7. The Saints' playoff chances plummeted with the loss that put them at 7-8. So huge game for both Cincinnati and Pittsburgh this upcoming Saturday, tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. Now let's take a little bit of a look at NCAA men. That's basketball. So today is the 22nd. Interestingly, we've got some fun games starting fairly early today. I don't know if this is a particularly fun game, but at 10 a.m. there's a game. It's JMU, James Madison, I'm assuming, versus Morg, which I'm assuming is Morgan State or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, Morgan State, right. So JMU, James Madison, is 11-0, ranked 20th in the country, and they are going to meet the Bears of Morgan State at Morgan State's home arena, Hill Fieldhouse. The Morgan State Bears enter into the contest with a lowly record of 4-9, but they're 4-1 at home and hope to pull off the shocking upset against heavily favored James Madison today at 10 a.m. James Madison is at minus 20.5. Let's say they're expected to win by between 20 and 21 points. Now, I would say one of the least interesting matchups of the day starts at 4 p.m. And that game features Mississippi Valley State, the Delta Devils of Mississippi Valley State, traveling to number 10 ranked Baylor's Farrell Center, their home arena, to meet the Baylor Bears in a basketball competition. But here's why I think it's one of the least interesting matchups of the day. Baylor, 9-2, 6-0 at home, ranked 10 in the country. Mississippi Valley State, 0-11. 0-11 away. They haven't played any home games. Do they not have an arena? Like, how are you 0-11 and your record is 0-11 away? Why did they not play any home games? So far, their games have been at LSU, at Oklahoma, at UConn, at TCU, at SCU, at CSUN, at Pacific, at UNT, at Liberty, at Gonzaga. Why are they playing such tough teams, too? They're playing fucking, number 5 ranked UConn, number 10 ranked Gonzaga, and now, at the time, ranked 10, and now number 10 ranked Baylor. and they don't even have a home arena. Oh, they do. They play their first home game versus Alcorn State on the 6th of January. Their second home game 2 days later on the 8th of January. And they've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 home games, I guess. But their whole schedule this season has been being the Washington Generals. They go travel to good teams and get their asses whooped. They got beat by LSU 106-60. They lost by 46 points. That's a fairly large margin. Against Gonzaga, against Liberty, they only scored 39 points in the whole game. So you guys need to be more realistic in your scheduling. That you're not going to do a good job. You're never going to make the NCAA tournament by opening your season with 11 straight road losses. Mariposa is not Spanish for pumpkin. It's Spanish for butterfly. It finally happened, huh? I was actually thinking about this not that long ago. Show Media was like, I wonder if they're going to try to somehow push it back again, or if Mickey Mouse is finally going to be public domain. I was actually musing about this maybe a month or two ago. Maybe less than that even. Well, here's my answer. I manifest the answer from the universe. What a good manifester I am. Yeah, I think I'll start live streaming exclusively as Mickey Mouse. Oh, I'm Mickey Mouse. Oh. I don't do a very good Mickey Mouse impression. It's very similar to my Jordan Peterson impression. I wonder if Minnie is also in the public domain. If not, when will she be in the public domain? Oh, I get it now. Flutterby. Who said Flutterby? Flutterby butterfly. I didn't say Flutterby. I said butterfly because Mariposa is Spanish for butterfly. Butterfly is American for Mariposa. So, well, I've been streaming now for 103 minutes. All I need is for YouTube to pay me $1,000 a minute for live streaming. You get why God named it butterfly? Oh, because it flutters by. But I don't think that's why God named it butterfly. I think God named it butterfly because butterflies love butter. If you put out a stick of butter on your windowsill, try this today, Ruben. I want you to put a stick of butter out on your windowsill and just watch the butterflies accumulate. They'll stick their long, rolled up tongue down into the butter, and then you start sucking it out of just sucking the liquid butter out of it, you know? That's how they get such big wings, you know? You think that comes from eating vegetarian food? No. The thing is, of course, what's deceptive about the name butterfly is that butterflies are nothing like flies. You don't have an irrepressible urge to kill butterflies, for example, whereas regular flies must die. If they're in my house or near me anyway, right? The ENTP guy never got back to me. I emailed him. Well, that's not inconsistent with ENTPs. I often don't get back to people. What should I have to drink? Okay, let's select our beverage. Fine. You win. Fair enough. It's still coffee time. I might as well get another cup of coffee. Like, I'd rather obligate ENTPs than obligate ENTPs than integrate OBGTs. Like, that would be a Dorothy Parkerism. If OBGYN or whatever they're called, if that was called an OBGT or something, then that would work as a Dorothy Parkerism. I'd rather obligate people I hate than steeplechase something. I don't know. It's hard. Dorothy Parkerisms are hard. Okay? They're like super expert level extroverted intuition skill. You gotta be expert level to nail those. Yeah. You gotta sort of stumble upon something, a concept that works well, you know. It's actually a myth that ESTPs are bullies. ESFP and ISFP bully way more. I don't think ESTPs are bullies. I don't think ISTPs are bullies either. Um, I don't think really any type is inherently a bully. I think every type in childhood is somewhat susceptible to being bullied and somewhat susceptible to bullying. Maybe there's more susceptibility to the bullying part in extroverts and more of the susceptibility to the being bullied part in introverts, but that would probably be a general rule that would need to be qualified a lot. But you know, in an ideal world where The in an ideal world, first of all, adults wouldn't bully children by ignoring their autonomy, their rights, etc., and forcing them to go to youth prison camp for all those years. Second of all, you can't expect prison to be a very safe environment for people. None of them want to be there. They're not there to do the thing they're tasked to do by the institution forcing them to be there. And it sets a standard of the people in charge can be autocratic and arbitrary, and might makes right. It's not surprising that it expresses that way then in that environment. But kids left to their own devices, of course, will be horrible to each other. So it's at least some of the time. And if you've got an assortment of different kids encountering each other in the streets, there's going to be cruelty. The bottom line is that the adults who engage with kids need to be massively more proactive about being smarter than the kids. The issue is adults are proving or applying this sort of proof standard in these situations that's appropriate, but it only works in an environment where people are empowered to escape the situation, right? Like middle school is pretty horrible. Kids are fairly horrible to each other. My daughter had a fairly horrible middle school experience. Anyone here in Street Urchin server? No, I don't think so. I'm not. I don't understand your question. Do I have Discord? I don't have Discord. What was my question? I don't like Discord. I find it too discordant. I do find its name to not be a lie. I would simply say Discord is not discourse. So much weirdness in the world, Everything on a global scale, we're in totally uncharted territory. As we have been for quite some time, since the Industrial Revolution, or at least maybe even since the Enlightenment. But with the clarity of distance, we can look at a lot of previous history as nevertheless some manifestation of scale rather than, you know, quantity rather than quality. The nuclear age is unprecedented. You know, weapons of mass destruction are qualitatively, not just quantitatively different. And the internet is qualitatively, not just quantitatively different. It's not just a better library, right? Like, whereas cryptocurrencies are like qualitatively different in their architecture in the sense of decentralizing stuff that historically has always been centralized. I mean, although you have the same characteristic of flying like butter. Which is to say, poorly? I would assume it's poorly, right? Butterfly poorly. Merry Christmas to you too, Mr. Joy. And a Happy New Year. A tip-top tet and a very solemn and respectful Ramadan. So, are we moving towards an intuitive society? Zane says we are moving towards a society of people glued toward to the latest tech, not worrying about the future of society. Well, I mean, we've always been a population of individuals of a species in which the vast majority of the individuals are not involved in anything larger than their own lives, you know. You're not your job. You're not how much money you have in the bank. You're not the car you drive. You're not the contents of your wallet. Is that thing that Tyler Durden said? You are the all singing, all dancing crap of the world. Who, me? Um, I mean, I'm not all singing. I do sing some. To be honest, I'm very little dancing. Whether or not I'm crap, well, I mean, I'd expect you to do a little bit more work in substantiating that claim before I were to take it to heart or internalize it. We're all going to be at home alone with our tech devices. Well, the thing is, I'm home with my tech device, but I'm not alone. I'm talking to you guys. Because you seem to be able to think in TI. That said, I only asked you one thing over text chat. I wouldn't mind chatting with you on Discord, maybe tomorrow for a bit. Might do a couple more polar tests. What is your plan in the new year? My plan for this year is to plan. Okay. For the last year, I've been doing localized plans like planning for the wedding, planning for the Christmas party or something. But I haven't done the framework level planning that I need to do. I would say in response to Tyler Durden, you are your job, you are how much money you have in the bank, you are the car you drive, you are the contents of your wallet, and you are a bunch of other things, all amalgamated into an identity that includes self-concept, that links to a lot of different things. And to try to deny that there's meaning in various aspects of your life, that those meanings impact your self-concept, is to have a very weak relationship with NI, you know. Well, for me, my car's not very much me, but it's it's me in the sense that I've got personalized license plates that say TWFP, right? So part of who I am is a guy who drives around in a car with personalized license plates that say TWFP, which is shorthand for his YouTube channel name. So that's part of who I am, you know? Is it correct to say one shouldn't define oneself exclusively based on external success criteria? Sure, of course. But then say that, right? Don't pretend that how you validate against externalities doesn't matter at all. You know, show media likes Diet Pepsi. I think it's gross. That's one way in which show media and I are different people. I mean, the point is, you have a self concept, you've got an affect, and then you got identity, which is a more complicated, less well defined term, you know? Thanks, beautiful wife. That's because I spent the morning before you got up at the beauty parlor where I got my brows done, I got my nose shined, I got my forehead waxed, the whole 9 yards. I got ear rouge applied to my ears. I think you can see they did an excellent job. It looked really natural, you know. Ear rouge is the next big thing in makeup. As usual, I'm surfing the curve, launching the next big trend. This time, it's ear rouge. Ladies, have you ever thought about how the back of your ears look? Not enough. You haven't thought about it enough. Even if you have long hair, what if your hair blows to the side and someone sees the back of your ear and it looks pasty and unhealthy? Introducing Ear Rouge by Eric. Now you don't have to worry about being ashamed of the pale backs of your ears. Simply send $129.99 to Eric's Ear Rouge Emporium.com. I will send you a single 3-ounce tube of Eric's patented, healthful, cruelty-free ear rouge. Oops. My bad. I didn't know you were still on. Grundle Rouge. Grundle Rouge is also a pretty important product in our cosmetic line. But you know, to be honest, Ruben, you need a whole palette of nudes for your grundle. After you've found the right mix of nudes on your palette for your grundle, then just a light dusting of Grundle Rouge on top. You might want to put some foundation underneath it all too, so it's easy to take off later. Because you should probably remove it before you use your grundle for anything. Otherwise, you'll get makeup on whatever you're grundling. EERE.com. Right. Eric's Ear Rouge Emporium.com. Eventually they'll have to change its name to Assorted Rouges. Now that we have both Grundle and Ear Rouge, You know, I'm thinking we could probably use some nape polish for the nape of your neck as well. ERE.com/Grundle. Well, you could just call it napegrundleear.com and feature only cosmetics that are intended for the nape of the neck, the back of the ear, and the grundle. We could also feature clothing that's grundle exposing so that your beautifully made up grundle doesn't go unappreciated. Well, instead of makeup for the navel, what I'm thinking is you call it angel putty, okay? Angel putty is a putty that matches your skin color that you put in your navel, and so that you just have a smooth stomach with no navel, right? And that way you look like an angel, because angels, having not been born of woman, have no umbilical cord, thus no navel. Angel putty can be one of the additional products we sell, sure. Oh, so I see all the cosmetics are for napes. It's just people um haven't spent enough time focusing on what the nape of every part of you is, right? Just the neck, usually. Can we add nose hair braids? Well, yes, but only if the hair is growing on top of your nose like it does on mine. Otherwise, it's gross. Angel putty. It's just called angel putty. You're supposed to understand by that term that it means you fill in your navel so your stomach's flat like an angel's. You do have several napes and they all need rouge. I remember one time I tried to get away with using blush instead of rouge. I was immediately called out by all of my coworkers. Ew! Is that blush? They said in unison as I walked in the door. Then my boss told me, go home and put on rouge. Stop dressing like a slut. That's what he told me. All because I had on blush. He ran into my classroom during first period and said, all these children think you're a whore. I was embarrassed. Anyway, I'm thinking about also maybe getting a bottle of Shalimar, so I can smell like my grandmother. Yeah, so that's what they said. Exactly, Ruben. It's exactly what they said. You pale naped slut. I ran into the parking lot. Boo! Tears streaming out like this, Drove home. Changed my makeup. Changed into a mini skirt and a halter top. Squirted some Shalimar on me. Went back to work. They said, that's a lot better, mister. This conversation is above your pay grade. Well, if you can get paid for this, then you've really accomplished something. Because I've been doing this for years. And as far as I can tell, the pay grade's so low, it doesn't even count as a pay grade. Last month, I got like $160 from YouTube because I guess it was that boy Klaus came in and dropped a a Benjamin on me, you know. I'd rather be a pale naped slut than. Okay, this is a good one. This is a good one to work with, Winston's mom, off the bat. Let's just figure this out. I'd rather be a pale naped slut than inhale. I'd rather be a pale naped slut than inhale raped butt. I'd rather be a pale naped slut than inhale raped butt. It's the only thing I can think of. Or how about this? I'd rather be a pale naped slut than inhale papal butt. It doesn't quite roll metrically as well, but including the Pope in it, I think gives you a bonus because you got your P. I think that's probably the best choice. It was actually super racist of you to quote Tupac. Because Tupac was black. Black is racist. Your brain's a slow choo-choo, huh? Well, even the slowest choo-choo still says chugga chugga. That's one of my rules of life. That's one of my Lao Tzu's. It's more like really the blind squirrel kind of aphorism than it is a Lao Tzuism. Lao Tzuisms, in contrast, are very easy to come up with. Did Tupac wear Rouge and Shalimar? Well, he wore like black people rouge, which is a lot darker than regular rouge. Uh, he actually wore what's that perfume called in that song? Wearing ambush. He wore ambush. Tupac wore ambush. I'm more of a Shalimar guy, and we both think Obsession by Calvin Klein is pretty good. That's where Tupac and I are Venn diagram circles or whatever. What kind of diagram is that called? Was it two circles? The overlap? He smelled gently of ambush and Madonna's puss. What's that intriguing smell? And then what's that horrible smell? Oh, that's ambush and Madonna. There's a reason Madonna didn't make a candle that smelled like her vagina because it smelled like evil. It is called Venn diagrams. John Claude Venn diagram. Bang! Wonder point. Bang, boom, bam. Wonder point. It's not Wednesday, but absolutely well earned with John Claude Venn diagram. That'd be a great character on a cartoon, you know? He could be two circles who are super rapey and narcissistic. Let's discuss Broccoli Todd's impressive YouTube channel. Let's. I definitely want to discuss Broccoli Todd's YouTube channel. But until I can, I'm going to have to wait a second because there we go. Because it was blocked by the heart. Go to channel. You have 30 subscribers and 34 videos. Apparently mermaids are real? Let's see. Are you on a boat? Oh, that's not you. That's someone else. Is that someone else's TikTok? Oh, Sauce 90. At 102, you can clearly hear the mermaid say, wow, I'm convinced. I am absolutely convinced that mermaids are real. Black sails pirate ship battle scene. Channel update typology direction. Menacing pimp scene. Goodbye Lucky Strike scene. Real paranormal footage. 74 views a year ago. Let's see it.
Okay, there he is, in the window again. We're in the bed.
That's the only language I know is around people eating. Yeah.
Show Media asked Winston's mom, if I gave you, that Show Media gave Winston's mom $10 million and a lifetime supply of Wonder Points, would you vote for Trump? First of all, you cannot give Wonder Points, okay, Show Media. That's the most important takeaway from this, is that in no universe are you empowered to award an endless supply of Wonder Points. So that the antecedent to your conditional is a false premise, and thus your question should be not even answered. Winston's mom, you fell right into his trap. You fell right into his trap. He is basically just trying to get you to tacitly agree with him that he was empowered to give Wonder Points. You fell right into the trap. This was never about Trump at all. That was just a red herring he threw in there to try to get himself an implied ability he doesn't have. No, Hitler and Trump are different people. Been around a lot of hot chicks. This is preferable. Well, there are a lot of advantages to here that are probably unique to here. So, one advantage that's unique to being around a lot of hot chicks is presumably you get to look at a lot of boobs and stuff, right? That's not an advantage you're going to get here. So, who stole my Wonder Points? Eric Strauss. Okay, Show Media. You get a Wonder Point for that. You deserve it. Reincarnation? Do I think Trump is Hitler reincarnated? I don't think so. No. I'd have to, first of all, to figure out who could be reincarnated as, who Hitler could be reincarnated for, as, you'd have to figure out who was born not very long after he died. You figure a soul goes through the bureaucracy of reincarnation in a week or less, right? It's hard to say exactly how instantaneous the soul gets reincarnated into a different body. Presumably, it goes to some sort of holding station for processing in the interim, right? But in order to determine who Hitler was reincarnated as, you'd still have to say, at most, 1 year after his death, right? At the absolute most, you could be born 1 year after Hitler's death. Otherwise, the reincarnation bureaucracy is just way too convoluted and slow. Zsa Zsa Gabor's soul departed halfway through life. Possibly. You know what I think happened is her soul got together with Charo's soul. They each only had half a soul left after each of half of their lives. And then they traded off turns having the soul. They had custody arrangement like with a child. Zsa Zsa had weekends and summers. Oh, you're saying hot chicks were preferable to not being around chicks. Well, I think having chicks around is definitely preferable to not having chicks around. Nobody wants a sausage party. However, I think the chicks would probably appreciate it if you dealt with them first as people and secondary as sexual objects. But, you know, I get it. That's one of the advantages of dealing with chicks here in the chat is you're not, the males in the chat don't get distracted by the fact that they have boobs, you know. I'm fairly, I would say, professionally asexual. It's something I've operated as for a long time. Part of my general egalitarian approach to the world that treat everybody the same, you know. Yeah, right? Charo and Zsa Zsa. If they got married, I think Charo should take Zsa Zsa's last name. Charo Gabor is a good name. Well, yeah, of course. Right. So, what I mean by professionally asexual is that I've always had a stark line between I'm looking for a chick, in which case, basically, it's the same thing as I'm looking to get in a long term relationship. Or, in which case, in certain contexts, I will be doing my ham fisted attempt at projecting flirtiness or something, right? Because if I'm trying to hurry up and get into my next long term relationship, so I can go back to my normal way, which is very, you know, it's not very corporeal. It's very abstract and having a good time, chatting, you know, enjoying people's company, etc., rather than trying to get on them. I mean, how a girl smells does not link very much to how she looks at all. Okay? Hot girls don't smell better. That's not true. Certain girls smell fantastic. Other girls don't smell that great. You know? You should always smell your prospective partner before you get with her for a long time. You should like the way she smells. Picture Eric behind the White House desk with his torch, explaining new policy. Now listen up, motherfuckers. Like that. No, I've not been around some nasty chicks, Hero Lamb. Um, it's that I know that people's body chemistries, how compatible your body chemistries are, uh, expresses in whether or not you think they smell good or don't smell that good, you know? And Joe might think Judy smells great, and Bob might think she smells bad, and she might be gorgeous. And it's because pheromones, body chemistry stuff, or whatever, you know? How do I execute flirtiness command? There's like this. Hey, how's it going? My name's Eric. How are ye? What's your name? Like that. My name's my name's Katerina. Katerina, huh? Nice name. I like it. It's got the word cat in it. Wow. It's very attractive. Oh my God, your hair looks so good. How did you do that? It has so much body and sheen. Like that. Yeah, people are reportedly attracted to those of maximally different immune systems. Makes them their pheromones smell irresistible or something. Word. Oh my gosh. Katerina, you have got to tell me where you got that top. It looks amazing. You think that would do well at the club? Apparently, people don't spend quite as much time at the club as they used to. Well, I think the word perv is generally used by women to describe men who are giving them unwanted sexual attention. So, whether it's because they're giving them sexual attention in a ham fisted way, or whether it's because they just aren't interested in that guy and he's not getting the hint or something, you know. I think that's probably how the term's used most. Of course, there's the worst term than perv, which is creep. Like if a girl's like, oh, he's such a perv, it just means like he's always trying to get on chicks and stuff. Could mean that, you know. As I say, he's a creep, then that means he's like being definitely really awkward at projecting any kind of sexual energy and probably like doing weird stalkery things or something. But I am neither correctly deemed perv nor creep. And that was true even when I was single. Because I always found sex and dating scary, intimidating, an unnatural affair for me until I got into a comfortable relationship with somebody. But I feel confident, very confident, that this is my last relationship. It's by far the best relationship I've ever had. And, uniquely or qualitatively better than every other relationship. Fundamentally different. It was interesting reading that thing the other day about pure relationships versus, which it basically was describing as entirely non-transactional. That there's when people do things in a relationship, either do part of shared responsibilities or do things for the other person, that it doesn't come with expectations of reciprocity or scorekeeping of any kind. And that's definitely what Rachel and I have. You know, we mostly just want each other to be happy. You have to be very, very compatible to have so few points of meaningful dispute, though, that you can have that kind of relationship. If you have substantial value conflicts or substantive value conflicts, then probably it's not possible to have that kind of relationship, and you have to have a good relationship, at least somewhat, by communicating agreement and making compromises and stuff. You can do that and have a perfectly happy, healthy relationship. I think my parents did that. They compromised. They communicated expectations and boundaries and stuff to each other because they weren't naturally so well aligned that that communication wasn't necessary. There are disadvantages to being that well aligned as well. The main disadvantage people point to in the mirage relationship, which I think is sort of maximally realized in both its advantages and disadvantages in me and Rachel, because we're not just compatible typologically, we're compatible in terms of personal histories, in terms of enneagram, in terms of worldviews and stuff like that are that express a compatibility beyond just the mirage relationship. But what they say about mirage is that they make each other lazy. Well, that's the same thing as saying they don't expect shit from each other and they're pleased by what they get. So, in other words, is Rachel pressuring me to achieve more? No. Do I want to be pressured to achieve more? Absolutely not. Might I achieve more under pressure? Yes. Is that a desirable state of affairs overall? Well, not to me. Maybe in a different part of my life, I could imagine believing I should prioritize that, but I would have been wrong then too. Once you're in the right relationship, it kind of retroactively changes your perspective on every previous relationship. Because you finally, at least from my perspective as an SI user, I finally, once I have something experientially to compare against, I go, what the fuck was I doing going out with those people? It also kind of draws into stark resolve how fucked up some of those previous relationships were. Makes you understand more clearly that some of what you faced wasn't just the normal challenges of a relationship, that a good amount of what you endured comprised abuse, or amounted to, I should say, amounted to abuse. Either because it explicitly was, like me and Kimberly, or because there's just a lack of self knowledge, a lack of knowledge about relationships, a lack of whatever engendered toxicities in the way you interacted with each other. But it's also important to remember that nobody ever really knows what's going on in a relationship except the two people in the relationship. Sometimes, as in instances where there's actual, like, what you call clinical abuse going on, then I think objective third parties can have more clarity about it than the people within the relationship. But in instances where there's simply, you know, like some conflict or compromise and stuff like that, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I gotta eat something, because what is a bad thing is me drinking a bunch of coffee, smoking a bunch of cigarettes, and not eating anything. That is very much a bad thing. Sure. Oh, honey, honey, you are my meow girl. I keep on loving you. Yeah, you know, the sweet song like that I like, this similar kind of era oldie is I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life. Meow 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 meow. Meow 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 meow. Oh yeah, it's really toxic and it can damage you for a long time afterwards too. You know, I endured a lot of just like attempts to just belittle me in a variety of areas. And it took me a long time to even recognize the damage in some of those areas. Well, in me and Rachel's case, I think it's ended up being better than either of us ever even hoped it would be. It's you can you can relax. How do you deal with that though? You didn't challenge in the moment? I did challenge in the moment. But I challenged in the moment by saying things like either that's not acceptable behavior in a relationship, or I'd say that's not true, and I defend myself. But that those things are very different from extricating yourself from the attacks. No matter how well you defend yourself, if you're undergoing constant attack, you're going to sustain some damage. Well, in some sense, we really can thank YouTube for that. It's not that outrageous to imagine that there was a woman out there for me and to make the leap that that woman may already probably there's decent chances that woman already likes me and knows who I am and everything if I select from a population of people who already like and watch my YouTube channel. So in that regard, it really helps to pick somebody who already likes you. I didn't I didn't convert her to an INFJ. I just came to understand I had been wrong. She was not a make-up sex type of person. The dynamic regarding sex with her was horrible. Absolutely horrible. You're way behind on this train, Rachel. I like how you spelled exactly there, Ruben. Or if a word's gonna have an X in it, it should have a Z as well. She wasn't she wasn't exactly a long-term control freak. She was BPD. She kept attacking me, maybe because she needed to see emotional vulnerability from me, which she could only recognize when it expressed as pain. Um, her behavior was predicated on an inability to trust. Rachel is upstairs, but she is, I do not believe, sitting on the roof. Speaking of things that are sitting on the roof, the east side big red bow came down in the recent storms and is sitting on the roof. So I'm going to have to go out there and get it. I have to go out there and get them both after Christmas. How can you make female ENTP to like you? Ask her to explain things to you. And then be like, oh, that's really insightful. And she is drinking from a cup with half grape juice and half milk. That's disgusting. That is a poor mixture, Ruben. I'm taking you off of mixing duties. I have been receiving YouTube surveys asking me if I like your videos and why. I click on each box and hit submit. Oh, good. Well, maybe it's because my warning went away. Well, I mean, obviously, Hero Lamb, Gamer Boss doesn't mean how to force her to like him. It probably means something like, how do I get her to notice me and be interested in me? She's not paying any attention to me right now. Oh, the cup is portioned. All right, then. I still think it's gross even to mix the two in your stomach, but it's a little bit less gross that way. I think it's probably about time for me to. Oh, they know that. They had alcohol while they were here. I encouraged them to do so. Yeah, you could try playing the equivocation game with her. You could say, I heard of this thing called the equivocation game where I say something like, um, there's a heavy fog right now as we're driving. And you say, do you think the weight of it will crush our car? That's the equivocation game. You're using a word in two different ways. For, you know. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap this up. I'm feeling actually quite tired. I did take both my 15s. So I took my full 30 milligrams today, and I got a decent amount of sleep last night, but I only slept half the night really well. In bed, sleeping ish for 8 hours or so. What are you saying no to? The fact that I'm wrapping it up? I do think equivocation game is probably in anything, you know. I mean, it's kind of NI too, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up because I think I'm going to try to take a little nap. I'm sorry, Rachel. I'm used to other people saying that. I'm not accustomed to you saying that because, of course, I mean, it's so delightful. It shows you how much Rachel and I are well matched for each other. This woman lives with me all the time. We do all of our stuff together all the time. And even then, when she wakes up, what does she decide to do when she's in her own room and can do whatever she wants? Listening to me live stream and participating in the chat with you guys, you know? So obviously, that's a good person for me to be with because why did I say that type 9 is unusual for INFJ? I think I said type 7 is unusual for INFJ. I think 9 is probably not terribly unusual. But remember, when I'm talking about Enneagram, you say that everybody has one from each of the three triads. So like I'm 7, 8, 4. I think it's unusual for INFJs to be 7s first. But maybe not that unusual to have it in their tri-type. Like 7 goes most naturally with action types, I suspect. Your NE DOMs, your SE DOMs. 5 goes most naturally with like TI, right? 4 goes most naturally with FI, but I have 4 in my tri-type. I'm neither 2 nor 3. So it could be that 4 correlates somewhat with FI and TI. The point is that all of Enneagram is ultimately a taxonomy of FI strategies. So it's hard to say if even if there are some correlations, it's unlikely that they link directly. Anyway, it's not unusual for being loved by anyone. Yeah, I don't think it's unusual, especially for INFJ to have 7 in the tri-type. I do think it's probably somewhat unusual for them to have 7 up front because FE tool probably ends up making them a little bit avoidant of, I mean, it's like they can't be too avoidant, I guess is the way to put it, while being FE at the same time. But I don't know, just a notion. Regardless, I gotta go. I'll see you guys later. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.